Once upon a time, in the vibrant city of Ibadan, there lived a man named Adebayo. He was a highly regarded businessman, known not just for his sharp intellect and financial success, but also for the effortless charm that made him the pride of his community. Born into wealth as the only son of his influential parents, Adebayo had always lived a life of ease, shielded from struggle and hardship by the comfort of his family's fortune. He was also well respected, admired for his charm, intelligence, and generosity. As the only son of his wealthy parents, Adebayo had been pampered from birth, never knowing hardship. During his university days, Adebayo met Ifoluwa, a brilliant and ambitious young woman who matched his intellect and drive. They were classmates, and their bond formed effortlessly. Hours of shared laughter, deep late night conversations, and an unspoken promise of endless possibilities. To Ifeoluwa, Adebayo was her confidant and her safe place. And for Adebayo, Ifeoluwa was a perfect friend. Adebayo had no intentions of settling down. Marriage was a distant thought, buried beneath dreams of adventure and success. But one reckless evening, one impulsive decision changed the course of their lives forever. It had started as a careless moment, and soon they got intimate. Unfortunately, weeks later, Ifoluwa discovered she was pregnant, and the reality of their actions came crashing down. Fear, uncertainty, and whispers of disgrace filled the air, but before Adebayo could even process what it all meant, his parents found out. Overjoyed by the prospect of their first grandchild, they saw it as a divine sign to cement their family's legacy. Without hesitation, they took matters into their own hands, orchestrating a swift but lavish wedding ceremony that left Adebayo with no choice but to accept his new reality. Ifeoluwa for her part had always been strong-willed, but now she found herself thrust into a marriage that had more to do with duty than love. And so their journey began. Their marriage was far from romantic. There were no grand celebration of love, no lingering glances across the room, nor spontaneous gestures of affection. However, they lived together with a quiet understanding, maintaining a cordial relationship built on mutual respect and an unspoken agreement to stay out of each other's way. Yet, beneath the surface, there lingered an unfulfilling yearning, one neither of them dared to voice. As the years passed, the couple welcomed more children, yet their marriage remained devoid of passion and excitement. What started as small annoyances gradually festered into deep seated resentment. Adebayo began to feel an increasing sense of restlessness, convinced that his marriage had become more of a burden than a blessing. He longed for something more, something he couldn't quite define. Ifoluwa, who had once been his closest confidant, now felt like an obligation, a presence he had to manage rather than cherish. The quiet companionship they once shared turned into an unspoken distance, growing wider with each passing day. One evening, after a particularly frustrating day, Adeboye let his thoughts slip out in the cruelest way. Ifoluwa, let me tell you the truth, he muttered as he pushed his half-eaten food aside. You see this marriage, it has done nothing for me except the children. If not for the children, hmm, I would have been better off with baby mamas now. Ifoluwa, who had been clearing the table, stilled. She turned, her eyes locking onto his with disbelief. What did you just say? Adeboyo leaned back, his face impassive. You heard me. What exactly do you do for me that another woman couldn't do without the burden of marriage? The words cut deep, slicing through the last remnants of warmth that lingered between them. Ifoluwa's fingers tightened around the edge of the dining table, but she refused to let the hurt show. She inhaled deeply, exhaled slowly, then lifted her gaze to meet his. Steady, yet brimming with an emotion she couldn't quite place. Without a word, she turned and walked away, her steps measured, deliberate. For the first time in their marriage, she chose silence over confrontation. And Adebayo, oblivious to the weight of that silence, had no idea that it would echo louder than any words she could have spoken. From that night on, something in Ofoluwa shifted. She had always been a fighter, raised by a mother who, despite being a school teacher, has struggled endlessly to provide for her children. As the first daughter, she had seen firsthand the sacrifices her mother made to put food on the table. So when she fell pregnant in the university, it wasn't just a mistake. It was a betrayal of everything her mother had hoped for her. The shame and anger in her mother's eyes had been unbearable, and the punishment swift. She disowned her. But then, Adebayo's parents came with a marriage proposal wrapped in gold and adorned with promises. They weren't just offering her a way out of disgrace. They were giving her a chance to reclaim the love she had lost. She clung to it, convinced that if she played her role well, if she became the perfect wife, the devoted mother, her mother would one day look at her with pride again. She had told herself that Adebayo would grow into his responsibilities, that fatherhood would shape him into the man she needed him to be. But reality had been cruel. No matter how much she poured into their home, no matter how hard she tried to nurture their bond, Adebayo remained indifferent. He took her presence for granted, treated their marriage like an obligation rather than a partnership. That morning when he uttered those words, words that reduced their union to nothing but an inconvenience, something inside her snapped. The last thread of hope she had clung to finally burned out. For years she had waited, prayed, and believed in a change that never came. But she was done waiting, done hoping. She would no longer beg for love that wasn't freely given. From that day forward, Ifoluwa made a resolute decision. She would no longer play the role of the perfect wife. She would no longer rise before dawn to prepare his meals, no longer ensure his shirts were crisply ironed, and certainly no longer concern herself with his long, exhausting days at work. She withdrew quietly, retreating into her own world where his needs no longer dictated her actions. The warmth that once characterized her presence in their home was replaced with an indifference, a silence that spoke louder than any words ever could. At first, Adebayo barely noticed. She's just sulking, he told himself. She'll come around. But as the days turned into weeks, reality set in. The house felt colder, emptier. Meals were either ordered or cooked by the house help, but they never tasted the same. His shirts were clean but lacked the familiar scent of her fabric softener. The home he had once taken for granted now felt like a house he merely lived in. One evening, he walked into Ifelua, reading a novel in the living room, her expression serene as if he wasn't even there. Why haven't you cooked? He asked, frowning. She looked up briefly. Ah, what kind of question is that? Since marriage doesn't benefit you, I don't see why I should still cook for you. Adebayo scoffed. What kind of childish behavior is this? Are you punishing me? She closed her book gently. No, Adebayo, I'm simply giving you what you asked for. You said I'm of no benefit to you, so I've stopped being of service. Oh. For the first time, a strange, uncomfortable sensation settled in his chest. He shrugged it off. It will pass, Joe. She's just forming. But it didn't pass. It got worse. Folua no longer woke up early to prepare the children for school, nor did she do his laundry or cook his meals. Every responsibility that she did without thinking, getting the children ready, getting his clothes ready, ensuring the nanny was on top of things, even remembering to stock up on groceries, she ignored. The house was no longer like it was. Instead, it felt chaotic. unfamiliar. The weight of it all pressed down on him, making him realize just how much she had silently carried for years. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, he arrived home to find the children still in their uniforms, their backpacks abandoned in the hallway. The nanny, overwhelmed, explained that Ifoluwa had barely spoken to anyone that day. She had gone into her room after running from the market and hadn't come out since. Determined to put an end to this, Adebayo stormed into their bedroom, frustration bubbling beneath his calm exterior. Ifoluwa, what is going on here? You've completely withdrawn from everything. Do you even care about us anymore? See, your children are still wearing their school uniforms. Ifoluwa kept silent. She looked up from where she sat at the edge of the bed, her expression unreadable. I've spent years caring, Adebayo, and what did it get me? Her words were like ice. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, she stood up and walked past him. He was left standing there, his anger now mixed with an unfamiliar sense of helplessness. But rather than confront his own feelings, Adebayo sought comfort elsewhere. One Friday evening, Adebayo returned home with another woman. She was beautiful, her dress elegant, and she carried herself with an air of confidence, completely at ease in his presence. Ifoluwa walked in from the hallway, stopping abruptly at the sight before her. Her eyes looked from the woman to Adebayo. Who is she? She asked. Adebayo losing his tie. Looking at Ifoluwa, he said, her name is Funke. She'll be staying here for a while. A thick silence followed. Ifoluwa's voice was calm, dangerously so. Excuse me? Adebayo sighed, rubbing his temple as if she was the one being unreasonable. Since you've decided to stop caring about this marriage, I have every right to seek companionship elsewhere. I am a man, Ifoluwa, and I have needs. She let out a breathless laugh, shaking her head in disbelief. So, rather than talk to me, rather than try to fix things in your marriage, this is your solution? That's funny. Oh. I tried, he countered, folding his arms. But you've made it clear that you're done being a wife. You've abandoned your duties. Ifoluwa, I can't keep begging for what should be natural. The weight of his words settled between them. Ifoluwa stared at him for a long moment, then at Funke, who sat quietly watching the scene unfold as though she had every right to be there. Then Ifoluwa smiled. Not a bitter smile, not an angry one, just fine now. Thank you, she said softly. Adebayo frowned. For what? For finally making this easy for me. She turned and walked towards their bedroom, leaving Adebayo standing in the tension-filled room. He expected her to yell, to cry, to fight, but she did none of those things. Instead, she calmly packed her bags, and this time, she wasn't coming back. By morning, she was gone. After Ifoluwa left, Adebayo was engulfed by an eerie silence that filled every corner of the house. The warmth that once made it a home had vanished, replaced by an emptiness that gnawed at him. The responsibilities he once dismissed, preparing meals, managing the household, tending to the children's needs, now loomed over him like an insurmountable burden. The children missed their mother, their eyes silently questioning him in ways that words never could. The house, once orderly and welcoming, felt foreign, chaotic. Only then did Adebayo truly understand the weight of everything Ifoluwa had shouldered, the quiet sacrifices she had made every day without complaint. Beyond the household duties, he realized something deeper. Marriage had not just been an obligation, it had been a partnership, a structure that kept him grounded. Ifoluwa had been his stability in ways he never acknowledged. Her presence had softened the hard edges of life. Her love had shielded him from loneliness. And her commitment had allowed him to focus on his career without a second thought. Without Ifoluwa, everything felt unbalanced, like a wall without gravity. Regret settled in his chest, heavy and unrelenting, making him realize that in pursuing her away, he had lost more than just a wife. He had lost the foundation that had held his world together. The warmth that once made it a home had vanished, replaced by an emptiness that gnawed at him. Months later, He stood at her doorstep, flowers in hand, his heart pounding with nervous anticipation. The realization of all he had lost had not come suddenly. It had built up over months of struggling alone. When she opened the door, she didn't look surprised to see him. He took a deep breath, his hands tightening around the bouquet of flowers he had brought. Ifulua, I don't deserve you, but I will spend the rest of my life proving to you that I finally understand. She didn't seem to speak immediately, merely watching him with an unreadable expression. The months without her had reshaped him, forcing him to confront the ways he had taken their marriage for granted. But it was the night their youngest daughter fell ill that made him the most vulnerable. He had tried to reach her on the phone only to remember she wasn't there. That everything became painfully clear that she needed her in their life. That was the moment he truly understood what marriage had meant. Not just duty, but partnership, love, and sacrifice. Ifeoluwa let out a slow breath, the air thick with unspoken emotions. She searched his face as if trying to measure the depth of his sincerity. Then, after a long waited silence, she stepped aside, granting him entry into his room. Months has passed since that fateful night at her doorstep. Winning Ifeoluwa back had not been easy. She had been cautious, hesitant to believe that his change was real. But Adebayo had refused to be discouraged. He didn't make grand promises. Instead, he proved himself in the little things. He woke up earlier to help the children prepare for school, learn how to cook her favorite meals. He listened when she spoke, truly listened and sought to understand their needs rather than dismiss them. More than anything, he valued her presence in a way he never had before. He saw not how marriage had never been a burden but a gift, one he has squandered for far too long. It wasn't just about love, it was about companionship, about sharing both the burdens and the joys of life. He had once thought of marriage as something that had trapped him, but how he understood it has set him free, grounding him in ways his wealth and success never could. One evening, as he sat on the veranda watching the sunset, Adebayo turned to Folua, his gaze filled with quiet reverence. I used to think marriage was something that happened to me, that was a duty, a responsibility forced on me. But now, I think I know better. Ifeoluwa looked at him, curiosity dancing in her eyes. And what do you know now? He reached for her hand, threading their fingers together. I know now that it's a choice, one I should have made every day, not just because of circumstances, but because of you. You are my home, Ifeoluwa. She studied him for a moment, then smiled, the kind of smile that carried forgiveness, understanding, and a quiet rekindled love. Then make that choice every day, Adebayo, not just in words. Make it in your actions. And true to his word, he did every single day. The end. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. This story teaches us some powerful lessons. First of all, it teaches us never to take love for granted. If Olua gave her all until she had nothing left to give, and Adebayo continually took advantage of those efforts that she gave. Also, marriage is not just about duty. Marriage is about mutual respect and effort. Adebayo thought he could replace effort with entitlement, and it cost him. Finally, sometimes losing someone is the only way to truly see their worth. If Ofolua had not left the house, maybe Adebayo would not have seen her worth and still believe that that marriage did not benefit him in any way. Now, I would like to hear thoughts from you. What do you think about this story? Do you agree with Adebayo and all his stance? Or if you were a follower, would you have ever taken Adebayo back? Please let me know in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real life lessons. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next story. Bye.